again, this is Angel Montesclaros, analyst from Market Insights Asia Pacific. So welcome to our Forex Trading, the foundation class, and we're starting off the lecture with fundamental analysis. So what do we mean when we say fundamental analysis? It is a type of analysis where the goal is to find the intrinsic value of a currency by looking at market conditions. This episode revolves around the very heart of fundamental analysis, the central bank. The central bank is known as the bank of the banks. Individuals and corporations all deal with local or domestic banks. I have been with the Bank of Philippine Islands or BPI since 2015. I save and borrow money from BPI. BPI, on the other hand, being a bank operating the Philippines, adhere to the policies created by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or Central Bank of the Philippines. They maintain accounts with BSP and they can even borrow money if needed. I cannot open an account or transact with the BSP. Only the banks can. So, central banks are considered as the guardian of the nation's currency. As a protector, they are non-market based or even anti-competitive institutions. Although they can purchase and sell assets, it is not for their own gain, but to make our currency and economy stronger. Most of them are non-government agencies that enable them to be free from political interference. In this sense, they usually are independent authorities that conduct monetary policies, regulate the banks, and provide financial services including economic researches. It has three goals. First, stabilize the nation's currency. Foreign exchange rate affects the country's overall economy. If the currency is too weak, its citizens could suffer from high importation prices. If the currency is too strong, it could affect the competitiveness of its export products. Each country, having their own economic profiles, strive to achieve a certain range of exchange rate, and it is the central bank's duty to make sure that the value of their currency stays within this ideal range. Second is to keep the unemployment low. Prior to Forex trading, I really thought job creation was the job of the government. Although this is true, employment actually starts with the central bank. As the authority leading the monetary policy, it is their duty to create a financial condition conducive for businesses. Businesses creates job. So high job is equals to high unemployment rate. Third, maintain an inflation rate around 2%. Please take note that 2% is the ideal inflation rate for advanced economies such as the US and Japan. Emerging countries such as Brazil and Turkey usually aim for higher inflation, estimated at around 3%. If you're interested to know why 2% is the benchmark, you may read my article on our official website. Moving on. The central bank has many functions. That's why it has so many departments. We only need to pay attention to one specific department, which is the one managing the monetary policy and the interest rates, aka the board. Within the board, the chief executive officer of the country, which is named as prime minister, king, or president, will appoint a central bank leader. Most of the time, the legislative body approves this appointment. This figurehead could be called the governor of the central bank, president, or chairman. The central bank has three functions. Number one, control the money supply. We cannot, print money. If we destroy the money, we permanently lose it. The central bank can print and destroy money at will. This doesn't mean that they can print all they want. They can add or reduce money in the circulation depending on the needs of our economy. Number two, regulate the bank's reserve requirements. Being the bank of the banks, the central bank creates rules for the banks to follow, including how much of their asset can be invested or stashed away. Number three, acts as lender of last resort. The banks are crucial to every country. Should the banks fail, the whole nation can follow suit. The bankruptcy of the Lehman Brothers in 2008 played a major role in the financial crisis in the 2008 recession. Hence, in the case of recession, the central banks may provide loans or bail out domestic banks. So I said the word may. It doesn't always needed to be done. It depends on the situation, right? But this is not true to all central banks. They can only bail domestic banks which have huge impact on the entire economy of the country. So if you're a small bank, that would not really affect the macroeconomic of the country. When recession happens, they won't bail you out. Anyways, we have seen this happen during the 2008 US recession when the Fed bailed out banks such as Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and Bank of America. Now that we have learned about central bank, let us do our very first activity for this whole foundation class. So we would have activities like this. For activity number 1, you should fill in the blanks. You may print or digitally write on the student guide that comes with every episode. So if you haven't, now is a good time to download the student guide. Anyway, I recommend that you pause this video while you answer and resume watching for the correct answers. If you're done with the activity, then let's answer this together. Number 1. The blank is the guardian of the nation's currency. The correct answer is the central bank. To keep the central bank free from political influence, most central banks are, number 2, non-government agencies. Number 3, the central bank leader is blank by the chief executive leader and is blank by the legislative body. Correct answers are number 3, appointed, and number 4, approved by the legislative body. It has 3 goals, number 5, number 6, and number 7 in any order. Stabilize the nation's currency, keep unemployment low, and maintain inflation rate at 2%. In order to achieve its goals, it has 3 major functions, number 8, number 9, and number 10, again, in any order. Control the money supply, set reserve requirements, and act as lender of last resort. So now that we know what a central bank is, what they do, let's move on the major central banks. Now, as I briefly discussed during the introduction to Forex episode, which was the first episode, we have 8 major currencies. Since every country has their own central bank, we also have 8 major central banks. This is a beginner class, so I will not be discussing central banks beyond the 8 or beyond the major ones. It's not recommended for beginner to trade cross-currency pairs anyways, so we will just be focusing on the major pairs and the minor pairs. Starting off, we have the Federal Reserve System, or the Fed. This is the central bank of the United States of America, and this is also the largest and most powerful central bank in the world. Why? It controls the US dollar, or the USD, the most used currency for financial transactions. It is headed by Chairman Jerome Powell. So within the Fed, the Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC, is the board that manages the monetary policy. Following the Fed is the European Central Bank, or ECB. I would like to clarify that every European Union member state has their own central banks. But since they all use euro for international transactions, the ECB was created to oversee the euro and the collective economy of the euro area. The president of the ECB is Christine Lagarde, the lone female on this list. This is a Femi Patel. The governing council manages its monetary policy. Next, we have the Bank of England. It is the second oldest central bank in the world, following the... I cannot read this. This is the Central Bank of Sweden. Sorry. I don't know how to read this one. I know this is Riksbank of Sweden, but I don't know how to read the first word. Sorry. Due to this, most modern central banks use the BOE as a model. The currency it manages is called the British Pound, or GBP, or simply Pound. It is led by Governor Andrew Bailey. The board that manages the monetary policy is known as the Monetary Policy Committee, or MPC. Succeeding on this list is the Swiss National Bank, or SNB. This is the central bank of Switzerland that manages its currency, the Swiss franc, CHF, or simply Swissy. In front of the SNB is its chairman, Thomas Jordan. Its monetary policy is managed by the Bank Council. You may be wondering why we still have the Bank of England and the Swiss National Bank on this list, even though we already have the European Central Bank. The United Kingdom and Switzerland are two of the countries considered as international financial hubs, making their local currencies very powerful, so they are on the list. Continuing on this list is the Bank of Canada, or BOC. This central bank oversees the Canadian dollar, or CAD. Its governor right now is Steve McClem, and just like the ECB, the Governing Council manages Canada's monetary policy. The only Asian currency on this list is the Japanese yen, or JPY. The Bank of Japan, or BOJ's governor is Haruhiko Kuroda. Within the BOJ, the policy board is tasked to manage the monetary policy. Going across the globe, we have the Reserve Bank of Australia, or RBA, that is in charge of the Australian dollar, or AUD, or simply Aussie. Philip Lowe is the current governor of RBA. Being a part of the old British Empire, it shares huge similarities with the UK, with the Monetary Policy Committee leading its monetary policy and interest rates. Lastly, we have here the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, or RBNZ. Its currency is called New Zealand dollar, NZD, or most people they call this Kiwi. Adrian Orr sits on top of the RBNZ as its governor. Similar to the UK and Australia, the Monetary Policy Committee is in charge of the country's monetary policy. Now that I have introduced you to the 8 major central banks, let us take a look at the people leading these banks. Since these people represents the all-powerful central banks, we as Forex traders can follow them to look for guidance and confirm speculations. First of this list is, of course, Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve System. Unlike his predecessors who are all economists, he is a Wall Street guy. Actually, there's only 2 guys who's been a Fed chairman that is not an economist. One of them is Jerome Powell. He is an attorney and investment banker prior to being with the Fed. Dubbed as Wall Street's head of state by the Bloomberg News, he received both praise and respect for the Fed's early 2020 combat against COVID-19 pandemic financial effects. And to be honest, I'm one of those people who are skeptical of Powell's leadership when Trump appointed him last February 2018. Over the time, he proved me wrong and made me believe even non-economists can be good central bankers. Within the Fed, he is known as a centrist. Before I discuss what a centrist is, let us learn about what doves and hawks are. Doves are central bankers who prefers lower interest rates because they value employment and economic growth more than inflation rate. On the other hand, hawks are more concerned with putting pressures on inflation that usually results in higher interest rates. So why do we call them hawks and doves? Actually, my mentor told me that they're called hawks because they fly straight up, and doves, they fly beautifully going down. So when hawks are going up, interest rates are going up, and then when doves are going down, then the interest rates are going down. Now, between these two, there are another genre. One of the other genre is centrist. So a centrist is neither doves nor hawks. They are in the middle and are usually data driven. Not a popular term, but there is another type of central banker which are called canaries, who explore the negative interest rate territories. I would be showing you some of the canaries later on in this list. After Powell, second is Christine Lagarde of the European Central Bank. She is a French politician and lawyer who served as Minister of the Economy, Finance and Industry from 2007 until 2011, the first ever female to hold the position. So she is the first ever female ECB president and first ever female minister of the economy, finance, and industry within France. So we have here Femme Fatale. Afterwards, she sat as the chair and managing director of the International Monetary Funds till she became ECB president in November 2019. The same as Powell, she is also a centrist. Third, we have Governor Andrew Bailey of the Bank of England. He has been leading the BOE since March 2020 and has been with the firm since 2011. He is a historian, like me, and a central banker who worked at the Prudential Regulations Committee and Financial Conduct Authority, or FCA. He has been in several controversies, including allegedly sleeping during a meeting and commenting about workers not to demand pay rises to combat rising prices. He is another centrist. Fourth is Chairman Thomas Jordan of the Swiss National Bank. He is an economist and has been with the SNB since 1997. Out of all the 8 central bankers that I will introduce today, he is the most senior, having been the SNB chairman since 2012. Under his leadership, Switzerland scraped its currency peg of 1.20 to the euro, causing Swiss franc to soar 20% in a single day. This is the biggest movement I have seen on the chart so far. I am not yet a trader when this happened, but my mentor told me that a lot of people lost money on this day. Price went back to currency peg 2 months after. Since Forex trading involves leverage, you either lost a lot of money on this day or made so much money. This is one of the reasons why every trader should put a stop loss and take profit in all of their trades. We always have to protect ourselves. Fifth, Tiff McClem of the Bank of Canada. He is an economist and was the dean of the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto in 2014. He left and joined BOC on multiple occasions until he became its governor in 2020. Under his leadership, the BOC raised interest rates from 0.25 to 2.5% in 2022 to combat rising inflation. Well, this is a story for almost every country on earth right now. Sixth is the lone Asian on this list, Governor Haruhiko Kuroda of the Bank of Japan. He was the former president of the Asian Development Bank from 2005 to 2013. He is an activist of a looser monetary policy in Japan and led the BOJ's quantitative and qualitative monetary policy. This is similar to the Q3 implemented by the Fed in the US in 2012. He is known as a canary like Thomas Jordan for allowing negative interest rates in Japan. Again, canaries are those who allows or dwells or explore the negative interest rates. This is an uncharted territory prior to these people. Seventh is Philip Lowe, Governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia since September 2016. When it comes to working for the central bank, Philip Lowe has the most experience, having been hired by the RBA straight out of high school in 1980 as a clerk. My idol! From clerk to governor. The RBA faced criticism under his management for facing inflation later than others. He admitted the RBA may have provided too much support during the COVID-19 pandemic, contributing to higher inflation. Eighth and last is Adrian Orr, Governor of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. He worked as an economist at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, New Zealand Treasury, New Zealand Bank, and Westpac Bank. So many on the list. Prior to the RBNZ, he was the chief executive of the New Zealand Superannuation Fund. Unlike the RBA, the RBNZ started tightening monetary policy earlier than many of its peers. This concludes the lecture part of this episode. Let's dive into the activities. For activity number 2, write the name of the central banker described on the riddle. Again, you may pause this video while you work on this activity and resume playing the video to check the correct answers with me. So, you have been warned, we are now checking answers. For number 1, I am a historian and a central banker who held a number of positions within the Bank of England before becoming its governor in 2020? Correct answer is Angel Bailey. Number 2. I have been appointed as the Reserve Bank of New Zealand RBNZ Governor last March 2018. I was the CEO of the New Zealand Superannuation Fund since 2007. This is Adrian Orr. Next, I am a lawyer and an investment banker. I am one of those Federal Reserve chairmen who is not an economist. This is, of course, Jerome Powell. Number 4, I was a French politician and former chair and managing director of the International Monetary Fund before becoming its first female president for the European Central Bank. This is Christine Lagarde. Number 5, I was hired by the Reserve Bank of Australia RBA at the age of 17 as clerk. I am now its governor. Philip Lowe. Number 6, I am the governor of the Bank of Japan who led the BOJ's quantitative and qualitative monetary policy. This is, of course, Haruhiko Kuroda. Number 7, I am the chairman who rose to fame when the Swiss National Bank decided to unpeg or scrap the CHF, causing CHF to jump 2,000 pips across the board. This is Thomas Jordan. Number 8 and last number, I am the former dean of the Rothman School of Management and had previously served as senior deputy governor of the Bank of Canada before becoming its governor. This is Tiff McClem. Right. Write your score over 8. If you got 8 over 8, then you could add 2 on your score, making it 10 over 10. This is activity number 3 and the last activity on this episode or session. The direction is also simple. Match the central bank's leaders' pictures on the left to their names on the right. Now, why do we have to know their faces? As a Forex trader, you should be watching the news all the time, reading the news all the time. But if you're watching the news, you might see them on TV, right? So let's assume that you're watching Bloomberg and suddenly someone is speaking there. If it's the first part of the interview or the first part of the show, probably you would see a name on the lower part of the screen. But if you come in and it's already in the middle of the discussion, usually the name is already not there. What you're gonna put in is the caption or description of what they have been talking about. So it would be important to know who that person is so you know what currency pair you're gonna trade. Alright, that's it. So again, you may pause this video if you need time to answer, but if you wanna answer it with me right now, then let's go ahead. For number 1, this is the almighty who? Letter B, Jerome Powell. Number 2, this is letter C, Thomas Jordan. Next, number 3, this is very easy. This is letter A, Haruhiko Kuroda. Number 4, this is letter D, Andrew Bailey. Number 5, this is Adrian or letter F. Number 6, this is Philip Lowe, letter H. Number 7, this is the Governor of Bank of Canada, Tiff McClem, letter E. And lastly, number 8, the lone female on this list, letter G, Christine Lagarde. As a summary of the session, this is what I want you to remember. First, the central bank is the bank of the banks. They have 3 goals: stabilize the nation's currency, keep unemployment low, and maintain inflation at 2%. Each central bank is led by a governor, president, or chairman. Although the names or the titles may be different, their job description are the same. So we have 8 major central banks. First is the most important of all, the Federal Reserve System or Fed, led by Chairman Jerome Powell. The European Central Bank, ECB, led by President Christine Lagarde. The Bank of England or BOE, where the governor is Angel Bailey. Swiss National Bank or SNB, managed by Chairman Thomas Jordan. Bank of Canada or BOJ, the governor is Haruhiko Kuroda. The Bank of Canada, BOC, led by Governor Tiff Macklem. Reserve Bank of Australia or RBA, led by Governor Philip Lowe. And lastly, we have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, RBNZ, managed by Governor Adrian Orr. I hope you learned a lot about the central bank and its leaders. In session 3, we will be discussing economic indicators and economic calendars. If you are enjoying the series, please like and share this video. Should you have any questions or clarifications, feel free to leave a comment down below. See you on the next episode. Bye!